G'day, today's video I'm going to do a side-by-side teardown of a 6146 Grand SEIKO special movement. So this special movement was the Grand SEIKO movement that had additional adjustments and was a higher standard of accuracy. And we're going to do it side by side with its little cousin, the 6106, which is what it was based off of. So the 6106 was a mid-range movement, usually used in the DX series and I think the Actus and a few others as well. So they're basically a 6119 but with more joules in it and also hacking on it as well. So they're actually quite a nice movement by themselves, but they don't have the same sort of refinement or finish as the Grand SEIKO does. So what we're going to do is, I'm just going to actually just swap this around while I've got it out, but what we're going to do is we're just going to start with taking the calendar off of the 6146, and absolutely shameless plug here. These are my custom movement holders, so this is the latest version of it, and I'll just zoom it out a bit so you can see it better. So this is the latest version of it, which has the cutouts on the side. Now, the purpose of those cutouts on the side, it actually serves two purposes. So basically, and I'm just going to get some finger cots because I totally forgot to put those on. So basically the purpose of those is for front loading movements. So the stem release lever comes out there, and it can also, and it's got one on both sides, so you can put the movement up both sides and the lever's not going to get in the way. And the other use of it is if you've got the 6139 or 6138 train side up, you can actually use those to operate the chrono system. So that is different from the hand setting tool, which can only be used with the dial up. So yeah, that's what that is. And I've got those for sale on my eBay store. I think the price of them, I think it's 25 Australian with a few bucks shipping. So yeah, if you're looking for one that actually holds these movements properly, that's one of the few that I find do it. The other advantage of using these plastic movement holders is that as opposed to the Bergian metal parts, they don't damage the main plate. So in one of the videos that I put up recently, you'll see basically the whole main plate was damaged by an adjustable holder. Some of these movements are quite delicate just around the sort of barrel area, and the problem with it was that the adjustable movement holder had actually crushed it, and that meant that I had to replace the entire plate, which was really a bust. Yeah, so that's not going to happen with these. They do hold the movement fairly firm, so it goes down with just a very slight push, and that holds it just tight enough so that you can put it in the time grapher microphone and flip it upside down. It won't fall out. So we've just taken the day disc off now, and you can see you can see the movement on the inside now. So there's nothing really there that's too remarkable. You will note that it has the better keyless work system than the 6119. So the 6119 uses a crappy push button system, which it works, but I don't really like it because it's really prone to jamming up. If you've got a seal that is just slightly dead, it will not work, or it will jam up or do all sorts of crazy stuff. So the complex lever that they use on these, which is very similar to the 6138 and also the 6309, I think is much better. And you'll see that there. So it's got, you'll see that it's got a few gears on it. Obviously that would have been more expensive to produce, so that's why they didn't use it on the lower end movements. So there you'll see we've got a barrel arbor jewel from the factory, and I'm just having a look at the other jewels in there as well. So you've got a cap jewel on the pallet fork there, which is very unusual, and that's a fixed one, so you can't remove that. And you've got another cap jewel there on the escape wheel. Finish wise basically identical, so if we bring over the 6119, do a side-by-side comparison, you'll note that the finish is basically the same. Obviously the this is a 6106, not 6119, so I'm just, it's a little bit fiddly to work, so I haven't got loads of space to work in here. So you'll see there, actually this is one of the 25 jewel versions which does have the capped escape wheels, so yeah it does. So that's actually one of the higher end ones in here. I didn't note that when I was pulling it out, but yeah. So that's the 6106, the 25 jewel 6106, which has the capped escape wheel, and it also has the additional jewel on the right there on the intermediate wheel for the setting intermediate wheel, which usually on the lower end movements they don't have that. Now, so just putting that aside for a second, just continuing on with the calendar side. So we'll just start, actually we might just take the date disc off. Okay, so still no real surprises there. We'll just take this guy off. Actually, I'm just going to Rotor that because I'm doing it at an angle, so it's going to shoot off. So we'll just put a touch just on the end there, and that means that we're not going to lose it. There we go. And now we can just take off the hour wheel there. Well, no, we can't actually because there's another plate in the way. So I'm just going to take this plate off now. This plate's actually very similar to the 6309, so that has a plate like this with the fixed intermediate wheel there. And as I move that, I just had a screw move, so I'm just going to find that. There we go. And just put that away because I don't really want to lose anything. That's not a good thing to lose things. Alright, so now that's off, we can take the hour wheel off, and of course that's tight because we need to take off the calendar wheel first. So there we go, so we're just going to move that around, and that should just slide off. Okay, so now I'm going to remove the calendar wheel, and there's no surprises with that. It's exactly the same as they've been using for a while. And it is the, I'm not sure if on these they went to a plastic top for those, but definitely in my opinion the metal top on the calendar wheel is better. I've had some issues with the calendar wheels with the plastic top where the plastic top has actually bent. And the problem with that is it tends to override the teeth on the day wheel, and the day wheel locks up or doesn't change properly and all sorts of stuff. So I generally don't like the plastic top. The plastic middle of the calendar wheel is fine though, there's no problem there at all. So there we go. So again we've got the jeweled intermediate wheel. Probably doesn't really change much at all, but it is a nice feature. Let's take the cannon pinion off there. So there we go. Now I'll just we'll bring it across for a comparison again. I mean, we just saw it a minute ago, but you can see there, they're pretty similar on the inside. Again, this is the highest level of the 6106 movements, the 25 jewel version. The 23 jewel version doesn't have the cap jewel on the bottom of the pallet fork. You can see there, besides that, you've got the push button keyless works, which is simpler. It only needs a few parts, whereas the wheel style one requires several parts, so it is much more complex, however much nicer. So we'll just go ahead and remove that now. Okay. Actually, the finish on the setting spring sort of plate there is polished, whereas normally it's not. So that's another point of difference. So even on the 6138, they're usually not polished, but I mean that's not very important at all. Okay, so as there's one of those little springs in there, we're just going to Rotor that as I pull it out, otherwise it's going to go across to the other side of the room. There we go. So the reason I do that is because it takes 2 seconds to put just a touch of Rotor on one side as opposed to hours looking for it on the floor somewhere. So it's just from a time perspective, it's much more time efficient, and I'd rather sort of spend less time pulling stuff apart and more time putting it back together. So we'll just take that guy off there. So that just holds in the end of the setting lever there, and we'll take that off. Now we're just left with the yoke, and I think there might be a missing part in here. Okay, so we'll just take the setting lever there off there, and take the yoke out. And yeah, now this movement actually has some issues, and I'll explain to you what they are. So the customer took this watch to the SEIKO service center, and they said it was totally unrepairable. It had a whole bunch of issues. Now they said the third wheel and the fourth wheel were damaged, and we'll investigate that further, but it looks like as well it could be missing the winding pinion. So there should be a pinion just in there, and unless I'm missing something, it's not there, and I haven't taken it out. So that could be a problem. I'll have to look into that further. So we'll just continue anyway here, and yeah, that's really annoying. So you can see that's missing there. So it should have another wheel in there. I don't know if you can use one from the 6138. I don't think you can, even though it's very similar. Oh, hang on, it's actually, I'm stupid. It's actually on the end of my Rotor, so that's it there. So in trying not to lose stuff, I actually did too good a job of it. So, oops. So that's it there. There we go. So that goes in there, and that's what provides the hand winding. Now okay, so that's good. I'm glad we didn't lose that, because that's actually a very hard part to find. Now, if we just come across to the 6106, that doesn't have that in there. So that would normally go there. Obviously there's no hand winding on the 6106, so it doesn't have that. So we just come across this guy here. So now that we've done all that, I'm going to move over onto the train side, and I'm just going to do this off camera because it might just take me a second. So I'll be right back with that. Alright, so just continuing with the 6156. So just looking at the top there, the rotors on these are much more nicely finished than the 6106. And if I just bring over, if I've got one out here somewhere, it appears I don't at the moment, but here we go. So that's what you get with the standard rotor finish. So you see there, it's nice, but not particularly finished. So what you get with the with the higher end movements is you get a very nice finish there. And I'm just going to actually just zoom this out a bit. So there we go. So that's a very nicely finished rotor, and you'll see it's got chamfered edges, all that sort of stuff. All the edges on the plates are polished as well, so these look very nice from the top. And the rotor is actually a heavier rotor, you'll see there. So anyone that's familiar with these will note that the weight on the rotor there is actually quite a bit thicker than what it would normally be on the lower end models of this movement. So we'll go ahead and we'll take that off, and it's just one screw for these. Okay, so that's all gone now, and there you can see the automatic winding frame and some of the engraving that's on there as well. Also, you'll note that the screws that they used on this model are a higher quality screw than the standard SEIKO screws. So you'll see they're flat, polished flat, and the standard SEIKO screws are rounded. Still polished, but rounded. But these flat screws have a much more luxurious look to them. Now you'll see this with this movement, it says it's adjusted to 5 positions, and also does it say temperature? Doesn't say temperature. So yeah, so it's adjusted to 5 positions, and I hope to be able to show you where the adjustments are on this. They're going to be on the balance, so hopefully I'll be able to get a good enough shot to show you where they are. So just comparing the top of this movement to the 6106 is, there we go, so that's the 6106. So while structurally they're fairly similar, the differences are in the finish and also in the parts. So you'll see there that the level of finish really is not comparable. The level of finish on the 6106, and while it's the higher end 6106, is nowhere near as nice as the 6156. So that's really where the comparisons have to stop on finish. So just on another point as well, you'll notice the balance here. So the balance on these high beat models is dramatically smaller, and I am fumbling a bit here, dramatically smaller than the lower end models. So you can see there the size difference. I think it's probably half the size. So the balance on the 6106 is absurdly large anyway. It's easily a third of the size of the movement, whereas these are actually quite small. And you'll notice that they have the fine adjustment on them as well, and the additional adjustment here, which you'll see here. Now, very few people know what that actually is, but what that actually does is that changes the and I mean this has been covered before on other videos, but it's basically the SEIKO version of the Etikron system. So that changes the rotation of the regulator pin, which allows you to do very fine adjustments on the way that the spring goes through the regulator pin. So you can regulate it, so because what happens is with these sorts of springs, because it's a flat hairspring, when you change it positionally, the spring is going to want to force itself one way or another out of flat, and the regulator pin I'm probably giving a fairly bad description of this, but the regulator pin really is what stops it from, well, what's going to happen, it's going to rock back and forth in the regulator pin. So having the adjustment there, you can turn that to try and minimize the amount of rocking back and forth in the regulator pin. And the effect of that will be that you'll have timekeeping changes between top, bottom and crown down positions, and obviously in the other positions as well, but they're the main sort of three that we're concerned with. And having that adjustment system there is really what you need to be able to get chronometer performance out of it. So on the lower end SEIKOs, there's no adjustment for the regulator pin at all. If you do goof around with it, you have to actually slightly bend the pin, and that just sucks. It's not a very nice or pleasant adjustment to do. So what we'll do now is we'll just go ahead and take off the winding frame there. And these are always 3 screws on these winding frames. I'll just zoom it back in now. Alright, I actually just pressed the wrong button there and stopped the video. So we just started that again, and we were taking off the automatic winding frame, which is 3 screws. And yep, I know my hand is in the way. Now with these screws, it's important that you keep your screwdrivers perfectly sharpened. I think that one looks pretty good at the moment. Basically, I profile these to fit exactly in the slot and not to quite touch the bottom. Reason being is that actually helps to stop the screwdriver from slipping. And a lot of these are actually damaged by bad screwdrivers. A lot of people don't know to sharpen or profile them for the sort of screw that they're dealing with, and that does cause quite a bit of damage. Now that, I knew that was going to shoot up, so we'll have a look at the underside of that. And that's the underside there. So it's basically identical to the 6106. I'll just whiz that off as well. There's one small difference with them, which is the way that the pole lever is kept in, because these basically have a capped pole jewel in the middle, whereas the 6106 doesn't have a capped pole jewel. And we'll just get that off and show you. So that's the 6106 there. Now there's already a few bits missing from that, and I'm not going to goof around and find them because they're essentially the same. So that's the 6106 there. So you'll see this is capped, 6106 is uncapped. So the higher end movements always have that cap there, and it really doesn't do anything except help retain oil in the pole lever stuff, or pole lever part. Alright, so now that we've got that off, we'll just zoom out and do another comparison. So that's what we've got now. So I'm just going to see if I can get this light in a better position, because it keeps chucking a shadow. There we go. Okay, so alright, so that's what we've got now. So we have the 6156 on the left and the 6106 on the right. So you can see some significant differences in both movements. So we've already spoken about the balance, but this one's actually missing the ratchet wheel, and I'm not going to put it on because we've seen them a zillion times before. But the finish on the ratchet wheel on the 6156 is nicer. It's a polished ratchet wheel. The ratchet wheel on the 6106 is not polished. It's just basically a bare finish. Other things to note here as well is that on the 6106 you've got the winding wheel there. You don't have that. It should be there on the 6106 because it doesn't have hand winding. And that's the main differences with those movements. So now what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to take the balance, I think, off of this now and just put it aside because I don't want to damage it. Balances for these are not interchangeable between the variants. So if you've got a 6156, hang on, is this an A or a B? I didn't make a note of that. So okay, this is 6156A, so you'll only be able to use the 6156A balance on this. So what I discovered is if you have a 6146 or 6145, the balances between the A and the B variants are not interchangeable. And basically none of the gear train is interchangeable at all either. And there were quite a few significant differences between them, especially when I measured them up. So the actual diameters of the wheels inside are all totally different, and the wheels are actually in different places in the main plate. So it's a total bust trying to go from the 6145 or 6146A and B variants. Yeah, so it's a total bust. You can't interchange the parts. So if you're going to do that, you've actually got to get the right parts for that variant. So I'm just going to remove the ratchet wheel on this, and I've just got to make sure it's got no power left in the mainspring. So it feels a little bit gummy. So I suspect that probably what's happened is someone's used some lubricant on there that has over time it's just solidified and is not so useful anymore. And I did say I was going to take that balance off, so I'll do that straight afterwards. So that's the ratchet wheel gone there. And you'll note that these are jeweled on the top as well. The 6106, I'll just get that screw off, is bushed on top. And anyone that's been following me for a while will know what happens to those bushes. So this one's actually not too bad. It does wear significantly though. So especially once the bottom is worn. So once the bottom is worn, that really accelerates the wear on the top bush, and they just end up wearing really badly together. So when I replace these with jewels, I make sure the top and the bottom are done. That solves all the problems forever, amen, and usually gives you between a 5 to 10 degree bump in amplitude as well, which really doesn't hurt a whole lot with these movements. As they're already low amplitude movements, anything really helps there. So that's the difference from the top. You'll see that there's actually one less jewel on the 6146. So we've got a cap jewel on the third wheel on the 6106, and here it was capped on the bottom, but on the top it's just got a standard jewel. So putting a cap on the third wheel, probably not so useful, but it looks good. Cap on the escape wheel, definitely useful. Probably a cap on the fourth wheel would have been more useful than putting it on the third wheel. That's just my opinion. So what we'll do now is I'll just take the balance off because I don't want to damage it. Actually, no, I won't take the balance off. No, actually I will, yep. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the balance off, but then I'm going to put it back on, and I'm going to try to show you where the adjustments are. So we're just going to take that off now, and I have to be ultra careful because these are very difficult to find as a replacement. Okay, so alright, so there we go. So now you can see the pallet cock there. Now the pallet cock on these is different to the 6106, so if we just take the balance off the 6106, I'll show you how much different it is. Alright, so the 6106 uses the standard SEIKO pallet cock that they used up until the 6309, and the 6146 has kind of like the Batman one. Now, I think the I'm still having a problem with lighting here, sorry, so we'll just see what we can do here. Okay, so is that better? I think so. Okay, so the Batman one is, it's got recessed screws, you'll see there. Now I think the balance wheel actually sits a little bit lower in this, and that's why they had to recess it. But yeah, it's a big difference in pallet cocks there. Alright, so we'll just put that aside and we'll just keep kicking on with this guy here. And let's see if we can... I'm sorry about the lighting issues. I haven't got the best lighting set up. It's better than it used to be, but yeah, I still haven't got it really perfect. Alright, so we're just taking off the click and the top plate. I'm just going to take these screws off because I don't want to lose them. Okay. So I'm going to keep going around there now. Now another thing to note here, and I'm going to name and shame the SEIKO service centre here. They did send this back to my customer saying that it was unrepairable. I think I mentioned this before, but I'll mention it again. So it was unrepairable, the third and fourth wheel were damaged and that spares weren't available. I mean, technically that's true, but you'll see what they actually did miss. So you'll see there the cap on top of the escape wheel was totally missing. Now, I don't know if I can really, if you look at that really closely, so you'll see the top of that setting, and I think we might be able to get a real good shot of this. You'll see that top of that setting's just been totally molested, so all around the side of the frame it's scratched. So someone's really had a go at that, and I suspect what's happened is that they've tried to remove the diafix spring, which doesn't need removing, and the cap, and they've lost part of it and just decided that it's not required and just taken it all out. So the problem with that is that the way the end shakes are set up on this movement is that without that, the escape wheel is actually going to move around too much and you're going to get stopping issues. And that's exactly what the problem with this movement was, it was stopping issues. So whichever idiot worked on this before and lost those parts and didn't replace them, you should be ashamed of yourself. This is terrible work. It never should have gone back to the customer like that. And then to lie about it on top of that is disgraceful. So whether that was done at the SEIKO service centre or someone before, really both of them should be ashamed of themselves, because the SEIKO service centre should have picked that up and put it on their report instead of telling the customer a lie. And if it wasn't them that did it, the previous repairer should have fixed that properly. I mean, it's just such a simple issue to miss. And not only that, it's such a critical one as well. The movement will not run properly without that part there. And it's such a small part, and they're very easy to come by. You can buy spare parts movements with those parts in there and just replace it. So there's just no excuse for this sort of work yet again. I know I've had a few of these videos lately, but it just keeps coming up just this week. So SEIKO Service Centre, shame on you. Do your job properly. Don't lie to your customers. If it wasn't you that did this, whoever the watchmaker was before, shame on you. Don't lie to your customers. Do your job properly. I mean, this has now cost this guy much more than it should have because of two idiots that didn't do their job properly. Anyway, so with that over, I'm just going to keep going on. Okay, so we're just going to remove the Batman pallet fork. And I'm just being careful to actually get the screw in the slot rather than just sort of faffing around with it and scratching the head, because that's not very nice. We don't like scratching things. Now the ends of my tweezers, you wouldn't see it on here. They're actually just slightly polished, and the reason I do that is so that it doesn't scratch the plates. Or I mean, it will if you press hard enough, but it dramatically reduces the chance that you're going to do that. So now I've got the pallet fork out. The pallet fork on this is highly polished, and you can see that here. I'll just try and get it closer to the camera. Yeah, you can probably see it from there. So that's highly polished. So if we bring across the 6106, it looks identical, but it's unfinished, so it's not polished or anything on top. These are a little bit fiddly, so I'm not going to spend too much time on these, but they do look visibly different. They wouldn't interchange, I don't think, because the pallet jewels would be at a different angle, I would say. And you'll see why that is in a sec. So we'll take the top plate off there, and I'll just try not to take the escape wheel with it. Now the other problem with this movement is that it's been oiled with mineral oils, and the problem with that is, and you're probably not going to see it on there, the problem with that is that mineral oils turn to a gum really quickly, like within 2 years or something. It's just ridiculous. So what we're doing is all synthetic oils, only use Mobius oils. If it doesn't say Mobius on it, we don't use it. And the Mobius oils are the industry standard. They're the best, they're the most expensive, and they're basically guaranteed, apparently according to Mobius, to stay in place for a minimum of 5 years. But I would say that if oiled properly, they probably stay there for longer, like 10 years or something. That said, I still recommend 5-yearly services, especially on a high beat movement, because they run a lot faster. You're going to get wear issues a lot quicker, and the lubrication is going to dry up a lot quicker as well, simply just because it's being used so much. So yeah, definitely on these sorts of movements, I would say 3 to 5 years as a maximum between services. So that may impact how much you wear them. So maybe you just wear them for special events rather than all the time. They're probably not the best everyday watch in my opinion. So if you're wearing every day, just get one of the lower beat 21600 movements or something like that. You know, a 6119 or something like that, and just keep these for a special occasion, and you'll keep them going a lot longer. So that's the train there on the 6156, and I'll just take the top plate off of the 6106. Now I reckon I've already taken the train out of the 6106, so I've used it for parts at some point, but fortunately enough of it is there. Actually, I've just got to drop in a fourth wheel. There we go. So the whole thing's there. There we go. So we'll just get it actually the same level of disassembly, just so it makes more sense. And this will just take me 2 seconds. Meanwhile, I'll just let you look at the 6156 movement. They're a reasonably pretty movement to look at. I mean, they're not Guilloshade or Gearshade, however you want to pronounce it, as a lot of the high-end Swiss movements are, but they're a nice level of finish. You know, sort of between buying the base model of a Toyota Camry or the, what do they call the next model up, Sportiva or something. So the Sportiva just looks like that little bit nicer. Okay, so there we got both again, and I'll just zoom out so we can get them both in the shot. So just get them at the same angle. There we go. So you'll see there basically a similar sort of train layout. Now the gears on the 6156 are better finished. So the tops of them, we'll just take one out. The tops of them have actually been, and I'm just observing this for myself just off camera, so I'm not talking nonsense, but the level of finish is just a lot better. So you'll see there, that is the fourth wheel. And if I just get this stuff out of the way, we might focus. There we go. So that's the fourth wheel there. So that's quite a nice level of finish. It's also got, has it got an extra spoke? No, it doesn't have an extra spoke. Now these are not interchangeable with the lower models. So that's the fourth wheel, and here's the fourth wheel from the 6106. So I might be bent, but we'll just ignore that and just really sort of focus on the finish. So you'll see there the once we focus on that, not really having much luck, am I? Okay, so you'll see there it's a slightly different shape as well. So there's more of a fillet on the spokes on the 6146. There we go. Whereas these ones look more stamped out. They would have all been stamped out, but I think some level of hand finishing has probably gone into gears on the 6146. So don't quote me on that, but they do look visibly different to the eye. You'll see there that's just pretty grubby on top, and that's not all dirt. Part of that is just the finish that they come in. Alright, so moving on, we have the third wheel. So I think from memory the third wheel on these, yeah, the third wheel is interchangeable. So yeah, I mean it looks different, but I think it interchanges. I have to double check that, but again we'll just turn it on its side. The third wheel here has teeth all the way up the pivot. The third wheel on the 6106 doesn't, so it does have a cutout section. So they do look physically different. I think, like I said before, I think they interchange. They may or may not, don't quote me on that. Okay, so now we're moving over to the hacking lever. So from what I can, yeah, the hacking lever's got a different shape on the 6156. You can see that very obviously. So you can see here it's kind of got a hockey stick end on it, whereas this one doesn't. It's kind of a bit different. So yeah, it's kind of got more of a dog leg, I guess you'd call it. So it is a different shape. So we'll just take that off now. Okay, so no surprises here whatsoever. The escape wheel is going to be a different shape on each one. So we'll just put these side by side so you can see. And I've just got to face them up this way. So this really is the heart of the movement, to be quite, in my opinion. So you'll see there, that's the 6106 escape wheel. That's the 6156 escape wheel. So because of the high beat speed of the movement, it's going to have more teeth on the escape wheel, and the escape wheel is physically smaller than the 6106 as well. So that's the difference with those there. Also the finish on the 6156 escape wheel is much nicer. It's totally polished, whereas the 6106 is partially polished. But I would say it's probably in a stamped and then rhodium plated finish, and there hasn't really been any further handling after that. Okay, so the last sort of few bits that we've got here. Now the center wheel is missing on this one. I believe that interchanges, again don't quote me on that. I can look it up, but I don't have the figures in front of me right now. So now we're looking at the barrel, and the barrel on the 61 series, the high-end 61 series, says do not open on it. Now they're intended to be a totally sealed barrel that never needs to be maintained, and to enforce that they actually crimped the whole top shut. So the only way to open these is to machine off the crimp and get the mainspring out and then put it into another barrel from another wash. But you can actually put that mainspring into this case. However, I've never done it with these. Reason being is if I break something in there, I haven't got a replacement part to replace it with, and that will really ruin my day. So if with the do not open barrels, because they're sealed, there's some chance stuff will get in there, but if I get decent amplitudes, I don't really mess around with them. If I was getting very bad amplitude, that will give me cause to investigate further, but if the amplitudes were expected to be, I don't mess around with them, simply just due to the risk that if I break it, I don't have a replacement. With these, the barrels, you can pull them apart, do whatever you want with them. With these, they use the same barrel from this model up till the 6309, so they're interchangeable all the way through. And yeah, we'll just take that out. So, sorry, I should make a note as well. The reason it says do not open is that they have a much firmer mainspring in this barrel as opposed to this one. So the problem with that mainspring is that pulling it out and putting it back in again is quite difficult, and I suspect that's probably why they sealed it. And the original intent with these is that they always went back to SEIKO for service rather than being serviced by an independent repairer. So when it went back to SEIKO, they just replaced the thing. Of course, these are no longer available, so we just have to work with what we have. And if we get a reasonable result, that really is where the investigation should end. So that, I'm just going to take that out now. And I'm going to take the barrel out of the 6106 as well. So obviously we mentioned this before, so it's jeweled on the 6156, not jeweled on the 6106. So that's going to wear like a mofo, so to speak, whereas these are not. They're going to last forever. Now, I'm just going to take the center bridge off, and as I mentioned before, I've already taken the center wheel out of the 6106, so there's nothing really to see there. So we'll just take that off, and we'll take off the bridge on this guy here. And actually, I have to go back on my words. The center wheel on these is not interchangeable. So from what I can see there, I might just reach over and just grab a part just so we can compare it. It's not really a critical part, but I think just for the sake of being accurate, we'll just do that now. So I'm sure someone in the future is going to pull one of these apart and they're going to wonder what they can interchange with when something's busted. So at least if I've got it there, we have an idea. And just looking for one now. There we go. Now this one's a bit rusty, but it's going to achieve the goal that we're looking for. So if we look at the top there, from what I can see difference wise, and I'm going to have to look pretty close here. Yeah, so they have a different hole on the top. I'm just going to get the plate out of here so it doesn't get in the way and I don't lose it. So you'll see that the hole on the top there that the fourth wheel goes through is actually smaller on the 6156. There we go. So that is quite a bit smaller than the 6106, and I reckon that the pinion is different as well. So yeah, it looks like I'll have to go back on my words there. It looks like they won't interchange, which is fine. Also, the finish on the center wheel there, you can actually see is very slightly different. So it's slightly better on the 6156, not dramatically, but I think I can see a difference. This wheel over here is really dirty, but that aside, the finish does look different. A higher quality finish on the 6156. Alright, so I'm going to just now put the balance back in, and we're just going to see where the adjustments are. So I'm going to stop it here and restart it in a sec. Alright, I'm back just to wrap this video up, and here we go, taking the chances that no one else will. And what you're looking at there on the side of the balance is where one of the adjustments is. So basically these are done by hand, and much like the way I'm holding this camera, so you're going to see it wobble a little bit. So basically what someone's done is they've taken the balance wheel and they've put it on a little tool and rolled it across it. And they've taken material out of the side of the balance wheel to make sure that it is perfectly round. And also when it's probably, I would say, the process that they do this by is sort of shrouded in mystery. So the people that do it are highly skilled, highly specialized, and basically sit in a dark room all by themselves all day and do this sort of thing. So it's yeah, the actual process is a little bit fuzzy, but yeah, probably what they've done here as well is they've just had a look at how it's running and just adjusted it for that as well. So we've got those on the side. Now looking at the top, I don't know if I'm going to be able to catch this, so if I can't, too bad, you're not paying for it anyway. Let's just try here. So the other thing that they've done here to adjust it, and I think I actually am going to be able to get it. So you'll see there's a slight step on the inside of the balance wheel. There we go. So what they've done is they've skimmed a small amount of material off the inside of the balance wheel. And I'm getting a lot of reflection here, which makes life difficult. So we'll just move that light out the way, and there you go. So you can see that step there. So that's another adjustment. So they've put this balance wheel on some sort of machine similar to a lathe, and they've just skimmed the inside of it. And that is another adjustment to the watch, or the movement, the balance specifically. So with there's nothing on the other side here, so it looks like the adjustments were done with yeah, so it's done. The adjustments are done via those two holes drilled on the rim, and also the material that they've skimmed off on the inside of the balance, or the balance wheel specifically. So that's where the adjustments were done. And usually with these as well, the actual hairspring themselves, they are, when they've been made, they normally let them sit for a while. And I would imagine, thinking about it from the metallurgical point of view, they would heat them and then cool them down and go through a few cycles of that. And what that does is that that sort of sets the metal to, my Australian accent gets in here, so that sets the metal to basically, once it's been through a few cycles of heating and cooling and aging, they probably let it age for 12 months or something like that. Once it's been through those cycles and the metal's also aged, it shouldn't change too much more. Now, someone, if I'm wrong here, someone feel free to chime in and correct me, but that's how that's what I understand from the process of doing this fine adjustment and fine adjustments to the balances on these adjusted chronometer grave movements. So yeah, so that's basically what we're looking at. That's how it was done on these. So you've got the combination, and I'll just rehash it once again. So you've got the combination of the material moved around the outside of the rim, which we can see there with the two divots in the side, which we'll just try and, there we go. So there's two divots in the side, and also the material removed from, I'll just get some other shots here just so everyone can see it, but also the material removed from the inside of the rim. And also finally the aged spring, I would say, is how they achieved those adjustments. In addition to that, the better finishes on the parts helps as well, and also the cap springs and all that sort of stuff. So that's why when you're looking at these adjusted movements, why they're not really comparable performance-wise to the cheaper or lower end models. There was just so much more work done on these as opposed to the lower end models. So someone's actually done the, I think I've said this before, I'll say it again, someone's done this by hand, and the 6106 all done on a machine. Probably no human hands ever touched it, whereas with this one someone's taken some real care to balance that and get it running in a good, what they call a delta, over several positions. If you want to know more about that sort of stuff, I watched a great video by Watchbox the other day on the TEARDOWN system, and what you see with the regulator pin there is the SEIKO 70s version of the TEARDOWN, or ETA, whichever way you want to say, ETA, the whole sort of lot. So however you prefer to pronounce it. ETA here means something, in Australia means something completely different. It's a company that makes butter. So across the rest of the world, that's probably not the case. But anyway, I'm going to wrap that up here. So we've had a really close look at the balance on this movement and the differences and how they achieved the chronometer performance. So I'll stop repeating the same information over and over again, and yeah, just let it go here. And yeah, feel free to like, subscribe, all that sort of stuff, everything that everyone else says. And yeah, look out for another video. I'm sure I'm gonna find some more material very soon. Thanks for watching.